Won't you be my bride? Won't you be my bride? Won't you be my bride?
What's up, everybody? This is my Strikeforce Nashville review. Got a lot to talk about with the stuff happened after the show with the Jake Shields and Mayhem Miller, but I'll get to that. Overall, the show, it was a night of upsets and had some decent fights, but you know, it really didn't do it for me. You know, I guess I had higher expectations, but I should have known that, you know, most of the fights were going to turn out the way they did because of the styles, and shouldn't have expected such a great, you know, night of fights, I guess I could say. But you know, I mean, I don't know, I guess I was just overhyping the show because I saw the card and I thought it was going to be absolutely amazing, so I was a little disappointed with the show because it was just an average night of fights. But the upsets, you know, night of upsets, every fight ended, you know, with the upset, so that was pretty cool. Let's get to the fights though. First fight of the night was Gegard Mousasi versus King Mo. You know, Mousasi had his laid back, calm, calm fighting style against King Mo, who really wanted to take this fight to the ground, in which he did. You know, just about every time he wanted to. You know, he had some good double leg takedowns, and you know, he just pounded on Gegard. And Mousasi was just, you know, kind of relaxing and waiting for Mo to tire out, but you know, it was like Mo got a second win in the third and fourth round and just, you know, kept trucking. So it was a pretty good fight. You know, it was a solid fight. But you know, King Mo, you know, got the win and new champion. You know, so that's pretty cool. I think that's good for Strikeforce because you know, Mousasi was kind of running out of people to fight at light heavyweight. And you know, King Mo is very marketable. You know, you can market King Mo. You can use him as a heel because a lot of people don't really like him. You know, the boos, and you know, King Mo's cocky. You know, wearing the crown. You can use him as a heel, and you can, you know, really push King Mo, and eventually Mousasi will get another chance at him. So that's good for Strikeforce. But anyways, moving on. Gilbert Melendez versus Shinya Aoki. The fight kind of went the way I thought it would go. I thought Melendez, you know, definitely would own the stand-up, but when it hit the ground, Melendez really proved me wrong because he uses great wrestling to, you know, stay out of harm's way. Aoki, you know, really couldn't do nothing. You know, Aoki kept trying to grab Melendez's arms and try to use wrist control to set up submissions, and you know, it just didn't work out for him. You know, props to Melendez. You know, Melendez is for sure a top 5 lightweight in the world, for sure now. Beating maybe, you know, what people considered probably the #1 lightweight in the world after BJ Penn lost. So, great win for Melendez. Not sure what's next for Aoki. Melendez, I really want to see him and Josh Thompson 3. You know, especially after seeing Melendez beat Aoki. That would be intense, and I'm really looking forward to that fight if, you know, they choose to go that way. But anyways, the main event, Jake Shields and Dan Henderson. This fight, you know, at first it went the way I thought it would go. You know, Henderson dropping Shields, but you know, Shields could take a shot. You know, it was tough. He hung in there, kept his composure, and Henderson wasn't able to finish him. And then, you know, after the first round, you know, Jake Shields just did what he does best, and you know, let's take that fight to the ground and own, you know, on the ground, and that's what he did. You know, he got him out a bunch of times, and he just completely controlled Henderson on the ground. And you know, props to Jake Shields for beating Dan Henderson. You know, what else is there to say? Jake Shields will probably go to maybe. I'm thinking he'll go to UFC, but we'll see what happens there. Dan Henderson, you know, this is kind of a bust for Strikeforce because, you know, Strikeforce was really putting their money on Henderson. You know, Henderson come in, you know, we pay you all this money, you win the championship, you get all the buzz around you. Jake Shields can leave Strikeforce after losing the title, and you know, Henderson is our guy. Things didn't work out that way, so you know, Henderson loses his first fight in Strikeforce. Henderson looked old in that fight. You know, he didn't look like the Henderson against Bisping. So, you know, props to Jake Shields though. And you know, Henderson, we'll see if he'll rebound from that, but I think he will. But anyways, kind of put Strikeforce in a little rut there, because Jake Shields, my money's on Jake Shields is going to the UFC, but we'll see. Anyway, after the fight, the brawl ensued between Mayhem Miller and Jake Shields and you know, the Gracie fighters. This was, you know, not good at all. Mayhem Miller came in the ring. You know, he didn't get permission to. Mayhem Miller is one of my favorite fighters, by the way, so I really love Mayhem. But, you know, he was kind of wrong in this because he didn't get permission to do it, and plus, what was he doing in the ring? Because he's going to fight Robbie Lawler next. So, I kind of questioned Mayhem there. But then, you know, you got to have some professionalism. You know, Mayhem was simply saying, you know, how about my rematch, buddy? And then, you know, Jake Shields pushes him, and then the whole, you know, his whole camp jumps on him, on Mayhem, and just like a bunch of thugs. You know, the Diaz brothers just want to fight. You know, they love that. And you know, Gilbert Melendez was in on it. It even looked like some of his coaches were in on it. It was a disgrace. You know, and then the guy announcing in the ring was like, well, sometimes this happens in MMA, folks. No, it don't. And I had never seen that before. I mean, it's ridiculous, you know. It don't happen often at all. And, you know, people who are watching that for the first time, you know, they're not going to understand what MMA is about. They're going to think, you know, MMA is just a bunch of thugs just looking to fight and just, you know, savagery. And MMA is not about that. MMA is about honor and respect. Yeah, Strikeforce can use this to make money, you know, so can CBS. But, I mean, honor over money, you know. This is what Strikeforce needs to do. Since this did happen, they need to use it in their advantage. You know, use this to hype up Mayhem versus Shields if Shields stays, or Mayhem versus Diaz. I've been wanting to see that fight for a long time anyway. You know, you hype up this with the brawl. You don't hide the fact that it happened. Everybody knows it's happened. So just use it to your advantage. You know, use it to hype up future fights. That's what Strikeforce can do. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. You know, ESPN loves to rip MMA. You know, I've seen, you know, Jay Mariotti, Bill Plaschke, Jim Rome. You know, they love to rip into MMA. And the New York Post said MMA gets knocked out in prime time. You know, so people, I mean, it's still a young sport, man, and people are still trying to accept it. That's why I don't like the fact that it happened. You know, it gives those people who are against MMA a reason another reason to be against MMA. So that sucks. But anyways, this was just an average night of fights for me. And the brawl, you know, really left a bad taste in my mouth. It got me excited, but you know, it wasn't good for MMA. But anyways, Week 48 is Saturday, and Week 48 has to save the month of April for me, because, you know, UFC 112 didn't do it for me. Strikeforce in Nashville didn't do it for me. Come on, Aldo in favor, save it for me. But we'll see what happens there. I'm still getting that pay-per-view. You know, I'm still excited about that, and I really, if this one disappoints me, if this one lets me down, I'm just gonna have to question. You know, I'm just gonna have to not get excited about any shows anymore, man. But I really don't think this one will let me down. I'm not sure if I'll do a Week 48 review. You know, I've been busy with school and stuff and work and everything, so we'll see what happens. I might be able to, but we'll see. But thanks for watching, and take care, guys.